The first half of 2020 is over. I have this target of reading a book a week. So we have 26 weeks. And I want to talk to you about the 26 books that I read or listened to in this very first half. So let's take a look in today's video. Hey and welcome to today's video. My name is Julian. On my channel, normally it's all about making you crypto fit. That means we discuss the beautiful world of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, blockchain. We talk about other investments as well. We talk about stocks and bonds and precious metals and real estate. But every once in a while, we put in a video where we talk about, well, a little bit of mindset, maybe a little bit about personal growth. And one of those topics obviously is reading. I'm a really avid reader. I use Audible for around probably 3/4 of all the books. So I do a lot of listening, especially when I go for a run or in the morning or when I do certain kind of work, when I'm at the gym. But at the same time, I also read, and mostly I read in the morning. I don't read much paperback books, to be honest. I read mostly ebooks on my iPad. One thing I really want to kind of highlight here, and it's also a sponsor of our show, is Blinkist. I use Blinkist because it gives me a really good insight into so many books in a very compressed form. So if you are someone that says, hey, wow, there's so many books, I don't know where to start, or I don't know how good these books are, Blinkist in very short format allows you to kind of dig in, get the really important topics out, and then you can really get a good idea for yourself if this is a book that you actually might want to read the full version or if you're good with the cliff notes. And if you want Blinkist, especially for the listeners and followers and watchers, has a special promo. You can go to julianhosp.com/blinkist. That's BLINKIST. And you can get a really special deal on your Blinkist membership. So, hey, if you want to get your book reading going, or if you want to kind of spike up this knowledge, Blinkist is the way to go. And many books of the 26 that I will actually talk to you about today are available at Blinkist. So this might be interesting. But so without much further ado, let's dive in. Let me just switch the channel here so that you can see my screen. Great. So let's kind of look a bit of the first 26 books in 26 weeks. I put there when it's a reread, and I do rereads every once in a while, simply because sometimes I really want to kind of go back a bit and just understand a bit on some past reads. And well, I have 5 books that I think are really standing out. I rank those books with stars, so how many stars out of how many stars, and then I kind of the ones that I really think are great, then I'll kind of pick them. Now, I had a couple of themes this first half, right? And that's important. Now, obviously, as you might know, my wife got pregnant, so I'm expecting to be a dad, yay, by the bit in the winter time. So yeah, obviously, especially in the second half of this first half, so at the end now, a few parenting books and a few baby books kind of came in there. So yeah, I just want to kind of highlight that. So this might not be your thing, that's absolutely fine. But just want to kind of highlight that. And other than that, I think it was a nice mix out of fiction books. I actually put in a few fiction books, so that was great. So why don't we get started? The very first book that I read this year is actually already a book that I think will actually make it into the top 5 out of the entire year. And it's Bitcoin Billionaires. I can really highly recommend that book. Great story on how Bitcoin got started, the Winklevoss brothers, fantastic. It's basically the continuation out of the social network. So I can really kind of highly recommend you listening to that book or reading it. I thought it was fantastic. The next book is Jim Simons, The Man Who Solved the Market. I give it 3 out of 5 stars. A lot of in the book is just a bit long and lengthy. It is really interesting. Don't get me wrong on this. It talks a lot about how he set Medallion, a really legendary hedge fund. I wouldn't say it's like a must read. So generally the 5 out of 5 stars are must reads 4 out of 5 are great reads, but maybe not like outstanding reads, right? And then 3 out of 5 are like thinking, 2 out of 5 is like, and 1 out of 5 don't even get started. So yeah. The Theory of Poker, that is a very specific book. I think probably instead of maybe reading The Theory of Poker, I would probably go and do like a Daniel Negreanu master class or something, probably rather than kind of digging in there. I mean, it's a nice book. Every once in a while, I like to read like a chess book or a poker book. I'm not sure if this was, if this was a book that I would recommend. Maybe there's others that are, a bit better. Another book is a biography. It's called Titan. It's the biography of John D. Rockefeller. You could discuss if it's 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5. Maybe it's even 3 out of 5, to be honest. It's extremely long, right? I think it's just by audio, it's like 30 hours. It takes forever. A lot of parts are just very, very dry, very, very boring. Maybe the major thing that I took out of the book was how much money he actually lost whenever it wasn't about his own business. I felt that was very, very interesting. So John D. Rockefeller was actually not a good investor. That was quite interesting. He trusted the wrong people often. He really made a lot of money in Standard Oil, but he lost a lot. So I think that was an interesting kind of takeaway. That was an interesting one, No Place to Hide from Glenn Greenwald. And it basically led me then afterwards to actually read the biography of Edward Snowden, because No Place to Hide is actually about this entire process there, and about how important privacy is. And because of that book, I actually read 2 other books. One was The Art of Invisibility from Kevin Mitnick. I mean, I didn't like it that much. I felt it was very specific, and he talked about all these strategies. To be honest, very little that was actionable for me. A lot of things I knew already. Some things were outdated. I think No Place to Hide is definitely a book that I would read if you're interested in privacy and if you're interested in especially in times like these, right, in government control. So I thought that was a really interesting book. The Art of Invisibility, I'm not sure. I really felt the Edward Snowden biography, to me, or autobiography, is a must-read. I really think so. I felt it was very interesting to read Edward Snowden's kind of point of view there and how everything went on, how he sees the world. It might not be your view, right? And he, in some jurisdictions, he might be a fugitive. That's up for other people to decide. I really felt the stuff that he kind of shared there was very, very interesting. Good Habits, Bad Habits, a Wendy Wood book. I felt that was interesting, very scientific, how to build habits and how to kind of keep them. So the 4 out of 5 books I definitely think are worth reading if you're in that kind of topic. That's the Bob Iger autobiography, Ride of a Lifetime. Definitely a great book. A lot of interesting stories that he shared together with Steve Jobs, and certain decisions, certain kind of difficult things. I would read this if you are either starting a business, but probably more if you're already in the process. Maybe a bit more have a team, kind of understand a bit of some tendencies there. So that was definitely very interesting. Blackout, that was a fantastic listen. And if you listen to this in German, now in English they don't have this, but in German they have like the really extended version on Audible. In English they just have the regular one. But basically it talks about what happens if all of electricity falls out. And so the thing is, this was written prior to the entire COVID-19 thing. And it's very interesting to see how the author actually really predicted quite well in what would happen if there was like a blackout, so if there's no electricity. So that was really, really interesting. And to be honest, after I read that book, I really kind of stocked up on some things. I bought some extra water, so we have a couple gallons of water now stored, kind of made a little storage, extra security stuff. So that really kind of had an impact on me, I have to admit, right? So that's why I feel it's definitely a nice read. I mean, it's a fictional book, but it could happen, right? So definitely very, very interesting. So this is the 3rd one out of the first 26 that I feel is a definite must read. This one is really a loser book. It's called The Optimizers. What a shitty book, really. I don't understand how this book has so many 5-star reviews on Audible or on Amazon. I felt that was horrible. It's a book about the future and how people optimize for a lot of things. The reason I just didn't like it was maybe you could give it 2 out of 5, but suddenly from one step to another, the entire book kind of stops, as if the writer was just bored writing. I felt it was a really shitty book. Not worth reading, really. So this one is one of the most famous pregnancy books especially for women, what to expect when you're expecting. I feel it doesn't matter if you're a husband or if you are the wife, you want to read this book, and also as a husband you want to read it. It's a super long read, and probably a lot of things in there are not relevant to your situation, but I think it's definitely a good read. And my tip here is to maybe go along also in how she moves along. So when, for example, your wife is in, I don't know, 3rd month or 4th month, that you kind of read this book when she maybe talks about the 4th, 5th month. So that you're always maybe a month ahead. I feel this was really, really helpful. To be honest, I haven't fully finished the book yet because I'm kind of there now when she's giving birth, and kind of I want to read this a bit more closely, right? But yeah, I would give it 4 out of 5. The reason it's not a 5 out of 5, I mean, obviously it's not something that everyone has to read. A 5 out of 5, I really feel, is something that doesn't matter what situation you're in, you should definitely read it. I feel this is a really, really, really good book. This is the guy's version, what to expect when she's expanding. It is quite funny, but I only give it a 2 out of 5. The reason is it's a very short book. It's quite hilarious. It's joking. So yeah, not 100% sure. This was actually the first financial book, and I started reading this. You can kind of match it, right? So this was kind of March-ish, April-ish now. I mean, we're getting to halftime, and normally I do read a book a week. So now obviously times change, right? So the blackout, very interesting. I read this, and don't forget, so COVID-19 happened in Singapore a lot earlier, right? So this happened like in February, if you think about it, right? So February, so basically week 5, week 6 was already when COVID-19 was hitting Singapore. So we're talking about around here, right? So obviously I was a bit worried about privacy here, right? So these were just kind of things. And then I read this book. So just understand a bit the structure here. And then here, obviously, this is now, we're getting into like mid-March, beginning of April, obviously a lot of financial turmoil, right? Because the entire world is being hit. And so now I started reading different books. And so one of those is called The Age of Deleveraging. I think it's a very interesting read. It talks about 2008, 2009, a lot of things kind of still affected right now. Now, key thing here is, don't forget, that, well, it's a lengthy book. So difficult read, long read, so yeah, but definitely interesting. No Filter, great book, quite new. It's the book of Instagram. So definitely a great read. I highly recommend it. Ooh, there's a mistake here. This is called Super Pumped, sorry. Super Pumped, this is Uber. Good that I see this here. I definitely think that's a 4 or 5. Here. Now, No Filter, Instagram. Great book. If you're interested in Instagram, if you're a startup founder, I would read it. These were 2 PDFs. These were really lengthy. They're not public. I'm not allowed to share those. So, but both of them were like 150 pages. This were actually, I read them pretty much the entire year. I take a bit longer to read a PDF. Normally I actually read like a book a month, and then I listen to a book a week, right? And so that's kind of how I get to 4 or 5 books in a month. And that's how basically I get to like 52 books in a week. So there were some traffic structure. So this is actually ideas in how traffic flows. So that was quite interesting. And then how to structure expertise. These were very analytical, very difficult kind of books. Yeah, they're not public, so I can't share those. These were more like assessments. Yeah, but really took quite some time. Now I wanted to have another fiction book. So this one is a fiction book. This one was a fiction book. And then I reread actually Lord of the Flies. I read Lord of the Flies when I was in the US in high school. So it is now 20 years ago. And so I just wanted to reread that because obviously, and this again, I mean, if you have not read Lord of the Flies, it's definitely a 5 out of 5. It's so interesting. We could do a whole separate section on Lord of the Flies and what to take away from. But so Lord of the Flies has some very interesting leadership lessons in basically different styles of leadership. One is through inspiration, the other one is through fear. And you can actually see this all around the world right now, right? You have people that always scare people and you have people who try to inspire. So very interesting. Also interesting in kind of how people go down to their basic kind of motivations and they cannot keep up certain hierarchies. Very interesting. I would definitely read that book or listen to it. Fantastic book. It doesn't make it to the top 5 of the first half, but it's definitely a 5 out of 5. I feel it's a must read. Mastery, great book from Brian Greene. It's been a long time on my list. I feel Mastery is really good to kind of find your own passion, find your own kind of why, be inspired to push for mastery. I think it's a really, really, really great book. It's a bit differently structured than all his others, like 48 Laws of Power or the 49th Law or 50th Law. He talks about a lot of things, laws of human nature. But yeah, I really felt great book, must read. Now the kangaroo books, they are German. And there's 4 kind of episodes in this. They're German. They are hilarious. I like having a fiction book, right? I like to have it like maybe fall asleep, listen to it in the evening, like to just kind of focus my thoughts. And actually, I listen to them at least once a year, sometimes even twice a year. But so obviously I put them here just because I like to reread them. I love the humor. They're just great. One book here, super pumped, is the Uber story. If you're a startup founder, if you like Uber, man, crazy story, right? How Travis, man, it just really explains a lot and it's really impressive. So I can highly recommend that book. I think it's great, interesting. Smart Cuts. I think that's a fantastic book if you're in business in general to read and learn about people, how they kind of, I like the cover, look at the cover, how the book kind of goes this, and then you have the Smart Cut, which is like a smart shortcut. So yeah, definitely a fantastic book. For me, 5 out of 5. And then, yeah, another parenting book, And Baby Makes 3. I got this from our couples coach that, Bettina and I have, just to always make our relationship really, really fantastic. And yeah, she advised us to read this, and it's great. Talks about, it's very interesting actually. The author is quite scientific. I read 2 other books just about general relationships. So if you're expecting a baby, then yeah, this one might be a good read actually. Fantastic. So these are my book recommendations that I would have for you. Let me know maybe in the comments below if you think that one book is missing, or maybe you feel that a book I missed out on, or a book that I should be reading. Would love to kind of, yeah, really kind of get to know a few recommendations. Again, check out Blinkist if you are interested in getting a bit of some shortcuts. And other than that, thanks so much for tuning in. I would love if you give me a thumbs up, if you click the like button on the podcast, if you leave me a review. And yeah, if you want to have more of those videos, but especially on investing in crypto, then don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you at the next video. Thanks so much. Yours truly, Julian. Bye-bye.